Good morning. Welcome back to Professional Insights brought to you by the National Referral Network. The question today is you're in your 30s, you're probably feeling some pressure financially, you're starting to make more money, you're earning more, you're juggling debt, you're thinking about kids buying a home. A lot of things have changed over the last couple of years. And so, how do you make the right moves today without drowning in information or regret later? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cut through some of the noise. Got Mike Clarke, co-founder of Protection Point Advisors, been on the show quite a bit. Really appreciate his insight. We're going to talk about financial literacy being the foundation of sound financial decisions, right? Having the information to make those decisions. And so whether you're just starting to build wealth, trying to recover from a few mistakes, which will happen, this conversation is for you to help bring clarity, confidence, and strategy as you are in your 30s. But before we get going, hit that like and subscribe button. And any questions you have, please leave them in the comments. So with all that said, let's bring in Mike and get this show started. Morning, Mike.
Let's get the show started. Yes.
Let's get it going. So, Mike, you and I spoke a little bit about this, and things have changed. But when people hit their 30s, right, there's often that moment of realization, they're no longer just managing money, they're managing their life, their family. From your experience, what's the biggest shift people need to make in how they think about their finances in this decade of their 30s?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, I think once you start making what we used to call real money, which is essentially you're making more money than you need to live on, I think you want to decide first and foremost, how much lifestyle do you want to live? You know what I mean? Like what are you happy with? And then the basic idea is don't consume everything. Try to choose a lifestyle that works for you, but one that doesn't see you eating up all your income. Because, when you get into your 30s, yeah, you do start to think about the future. You start to think about, how do I stop living paycheck to paycheck? How do I manage debt that I have, particularly things like student debt and such? So it really does revolve around inventory, I think. And I think it starts with kind of a personal inventory where you're looking at, okay, well, how do I want to live and what's it going to cost?
So there's that tug of war, Mike, sometimes, right? You've got potential student debt. Maybe you started a career, in their 20s, and now you're kind of moving up. There's the investing, there's homes. Where do you usually suggest people begin when they have this financial to-do list, and how do you prioritize that? I mean, obviously it's individual, but how do you help clients get clarity on that?
Well, we used to have this thing called a financial planning pyramid that we used to show people a lot. And I still reference it because it makes a lot of sense, because it refers to kind of sequentially how you do things. And it's also simple because it sort of breaks it down into three areas. And the first area is insurance and liquidity. I mean, you have to make sure that you have enough liquidity. So if something happens, it's unexpected, and you got to cover it. You got enough money to do it without going into debt, putting it on a credit card,
Right.
things like that. I was talking to somebody the other day who went into debt because their elderly pet got very, very sick, and it was an end of life issue. And they ended up racking up several $1,000s of credit card debt because they had nowhere else to go with it. Okay. So things like that. So if you have, usually it's recommended 3 to 6 months of lifestyle income that you have just available to you in cash if you need to go and get it. That's a good starting point. And then, look at whether you have adequate insurance, health insurance. If you're beholden to somebody else financially, life insurance. It's really inexpensive if you're young, things like that. So have adequate insurance and adequate liquidity. And then from there, anything over and above what you need to use to pay for lifestyle really just goes into it really goes to buy things that appreciate in value. And usually that's things like a company sponsored retirement plan, maybe an IRA, things like that. So there's a sequence to this. And as you get further and further into the process, you're able to take more and more risk because you foundationally set yourself up for the long term in the right way.
So retirement in their 30s, right? I experienced this in my 30s a while ago.
Yeah.
Can feel like it's so far away. Obviously, the clock is ticking. We got a one-way ticket in this thing called life. What like, and we've talked about this before. That paradigm shift as your income raises. What is a couple questions? What is that trigger point to get them to engage in that 401k in their 30s, knowing that it's so far, like I'm so far away from retirement?
Um, I think it's the best way to sell it really is just to, first of all, I, payroll deduction, let me just say, is probably the most powerful savings mechanism I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for almost 33 years, and I've never seen anything works better. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think first and foremost, if I'm in the workplace, I'm talking to people about, saving for for when they're older. They may not relate to what it's going to be like when they're older, but I think you stand a pretty good chance if I can automate the process, or if I can say to somebody the process is going to be automated. The second thing is I try to relate it to health, because I think taking care of oneself financially is almost exactly like taking care of oneself physically.
Mhm.
If you're going to take care of yourself physically, you're going to eat right, you're going to exercise, you're going to try to get, the proper sleep and rest and things like that. I mean, there are some basics. And I think if we, as advisors, approach it that way and say, look, do what you can, but take care of yourself financially, because you'll never regret doing that, and just approach it like you do physically. I think these are the basic tenets of it. Sometimes it's a tough sell still, particularly if somebody thinks that they need all the income they make, which is also common. And again, that's back to my earlier point. Take inventory and make sure that's actually the case.
So let's say somebody gets a raise, and we've talked about this a lot. And I mean, it's like we're going to beat this into people whether they want to hear it or not, right?
Right,
You get a raise, it doesn't mean you increase your lifestyle.
right.
What's the best way to make sure extra income works for them instead of just disappearing into that lifestyle?
Well, if you're making a contribution into a company-sponsored retirement plan, usually a 401k, I mean, you get a raise and you're living fine, meaning you were living fine before you got the raise. Take the raise and increase the percentage contribution into the plan. That's a great thing to do. Um, if you don't have adequate savings, increase the amount going to savings. If you have maybe some credit card debt you need to pay off, pay that off. It really is about first and foremost knowing what your life costs initially, and then subtracting what you bring home from what life costs. It,
So for,
it's all about that inventory and being diligent about that.
so taking the inventory, Mike, right? Obviously there's the current inventory, and then there's future potential inventory like starting a family
Right.
or buying a home.
Mhm.
So how does somebody balance priorities like college savings for their future kids, buying a home while still planning for their own personal retirement?
Again, it's just a question of priorities. It's a question of, if whatever surplus is left over, you just prioritize it in the areas that mean the most to you. It's not up to me to tell somebody what they should want or care about. Okay. Um, I do think that it's about making choices. I do think that it's about moving towards what's most important to you, and maybe what's most exciting to you. If saving for a home is exciting, then you'll always do what you're most enthusiastic about. So it's just a question of priorities.
And one of those and you mentioned it a little bit ago, Mike, about adequate insurance.
Hmm.
There is a lot of marketing that
Yeah,
puts a lot of fancy bows on life insurance,
sure.
family banking, infinite banking, all of these catchphrases.
Right.
What types of coverage, like how do you determine the right amount of coverage for a family, but that's thinking about that responsibilities of growing their family?
Well, I once heard somebody say, when it comes to life insurance, buy enough.
Right,
It
right,
doesn't matter how you get there, just buy enough. I mean, look, first and foremost, you buy insurance of any kind because you are wanting to reduce or eliminate an exposure you have, a risk exposure you have, and were it to occur, you couldn't pay for it yourself. Okay. Health insurance is the best example. I think, we all have, hopefully all have access or have health insurance. Um, and that's because if either you or I ended up in intensive care for a month, that would bankrupt us.
right,
Okay. And so we have health insurance to cover that. Life insurance is pretty simple. I mean, it's somebody dies, the insurance company pays a claim. And what it's meant to do primarily is to replace lost income that you weren't around to earn because you died prematurely. Okay. So the idea is to assess what is the nature of that risk. In other words, say, well, how much money will your family lose if you're not around? And that involves doing the math properly. But so first and foremost, it's not about a product. It's
right.
about getting the math right.
Okay. And so let's just say you've got the foundation, whatever that looks like for the individual, based off of the financial plan, their goals, and their vision.
Mhm.
How do you help clients manage that lifestyle creep that comes with increased income now that they have their foundation built?
Well, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record here, but the real key to it is inventory and scorekeeping. You got to have a way that you
Yeah.
keep score of your financial life, and you got to, couples need, I mean, at this point, well, I guess as people progress through life, we assume that people are um, not entirely by themselves anymore. Um, so it's about deciding what you want and what has priority and how are we keeping score, and scorekeeping really is the centerpiece of all of it. The better you are at scorekeeping, the better you're going to do.
And on a side note, Mike, I don't want to sound like every dollar's got to go into investments, right? You individuals making more money, increasing, creating more value in the workforce, making more, et cetera, right? That
Right.
cycle, they do have to reward themselves.
Yeah. Well, I always think of it as it's kind of this multi-tier thing. You do want to plan for things. If you're talking about what you want, the short term matters too. If
Right.
you want to take a vacation and you want to take a vacation to Disneyland, oh my gosh, is that my favorite place in the world? Um, sorry,
Yeah.
we
Yep.
don't mean to be down on Disneyland, but if yeah, if you want to go to Disneyland or you want to go, I don't know, to the Grand Canyon, or you want to take a vacation to Europe, or what have you, that's all worthwhile stuff. And so there's nothing wrong with prioritizing some money in that direction. Maybe it's a dream fishing vacation to the Snake River in Idaho. I don't know.
Right.
Um, these are important things. And I think it's important to, I think, it's really important to look where you're having successes. And they sometimes can be little successes, like I want to save up some money so we can, I don't know, put in a new shower, let's say, okay,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. I mean, every day you walk into your bathroom and you see a new shower, and you're like, oh, that represents a success. So it's really about racking up successes of every size, I think. So it's about prioritizing, taking inventory, and then looking, okay, where can we be successful? And the short term, I think, is oh, I don't, it just sounds strange coming from an advisor, but it's almost just as important as the long term.
So in the 30s, Mike, some people have made mistakes, right? They've credit card debt. Maybe they had
Mhm.
to file bankruptcy. Maybe, I mean, there's all kinds of mistakes that people make in their 20s. So now they're in their 30s. They're watching this. What's in, and they may feel behind, right? We're talking about 401ks and college planning and all these things, but maybe they feel behind.
Mhm.
what's that one simple mindset shift or action step that they can take to get back on track? And is it something as simple as making those successes, just small successes?
Well, I think first thing is if you've made mistakes, forgive yourself. You knew not what you did,
Fair enough.
and that's overwhelmingly the case with so many people. I mean, we've met over the years so many different, high income earning professionals, for example, that have all told us we wish we had been taught money. Yeah, money just doesn't get taught. So it really does lay the groundwork for all kinds of mistakes to be made. So if you made mistakes, just say, hey, look, this is what I did and I didn't know any better. And now how do we fix it? And again, it starts with take inventory, what's coming in versus what's going out. What do you want? Prioritize that. And then and really, if you're burdened by debt, I would suggest that that's really one of the first things you just want to attack your debt.
Right.
Okay. And get out from under that burden. Okay. Um, and along the way, again, if you're a high income earning professional, you're in your 30s, you're starting to earn more money, you got to decide how much lifestyle is enough for you. And is it your choice or is it someone else's? Like, what does work for you? I think it revolves around some very, very simple concepts.
I love it. So, Mike, in closing here, do you have a financial mantra or principle that you share with your clients that may be in their 30s, something that helps them guide smart decisions during this transformative decade?
It's all about habit. It really is. It's no different than staying physically fit or physically well. It's all about the things you do over and over and over and over again. I was visiting with a new client the other day, and they're in their early 70s now, and they asked me, they have so much more money than they'll ever spend. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And they said, how did we get here? What did we do to get to this place where that's the case? And I just said, it was just habit. You just automated everything you did. You put money into your retirement plans and you did it faithfully for 50 years. And this is what happened. And so there's kind of this snowball effect that happens over time, and it takes time. It builds slowly in the early years, but you get into later years, and then really it's remarkable how the whole thing can evolve. So it's just all about habit. Adopt the best habits you can as early as you can, and take very, very diligent inventory over what's coming in and what's going out, and then prioritize.
Awesome. Mike, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could cover. Instant gratification on social media versus long-term planning. Maybe we'll have that as a topic next time.
Yeah, we should. I mean, because there's this blizzard of images that show up on social media about the bigger, better life.
Right.
Which
And all you have to
really is
do
all
is
around, more and more opulent things that are. I think these images of wealth don't represent what wealth is.
no. And all you have to do is subscribe to this AI trading bot, and you're going to make $1 million in a
Right.
year.
Yeah,
So
the basic tenets of wealth building have not changed, and I don't think will change because
no,
they're all just like the basic tenets of taking care of your health won't change.
absolutely. Mike, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. We're here every Tuesday morning with professionals just like Mike, talking about these topics that are real topics. So please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave any questions below. And if you have any questions, Mike's contact information will be there as well. Thank you, Mike, for the time, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.